Welcome to the Time Archive. A place where history is more than dates and dry facts, it is a journey through the extraordinary moments that have shaped our world in astonishing ways. Today, we begin a story that is both bizarre and tragic, a story that has baffled historians, engineers, and curious minds alike, the Great Molasses Flood of 1919. It might sound like a tale too strange to be true. Imagine a wave, not of water, but of thick, sticky molasses, barreling through the streets of a bustling American city, engulfing everything in its path. This was no accident of nature but a man-made catastrophe that left behind destruction, heartbreak, and lifelong lessons. Our story unfolds in Boston, Massachusetts, in the neighborhood known as the North End. A community alive with immigrants, artisans, and hard-working families who, little knowing, shared their streets and homes with one of the most unusual disasters in history. To truly appreciate the enormity of this event, we must first understand the times. America was in the grip of rapid industrialization and urban expansion, a nation racing forward with little regard for the safety nets that we now take for granted. Boston at the beginning of the 20th century was a microcosm of this change, an ancient city adapting uneasily to the new rhythms of modernity. Among the pulsating veins of its industry ran the sweet, viscous molasses that stirred economic excitement and industrial ambition. It was molasses that found a curious and critical place in the burgeoning industries of the time, particularly in the making of industrial alcohol, fuel, and rationed goods. At the heart of this story is the Purity Distilling Company, an enterprise headquartered in Boston, under the expansive umbrella of the United States Industrial Alcohol Corporation. To support its growing production needs, it erected a massive molasses tank, a steel giant 50 feet tall and 90 feet in diameter. Built hastily and without thorough engineering oversight, this tank would become the epicenter of the disaster. Constructed in late 1918 and early 1919, the tank was intended to store over 2 million gallons of molasses, the size and scale a testament to the industrial hunger of the time. But haste bore compromise. The steel was reportedly of poor quality, the rivets inadequately secured, and preventative inspections scant, at best. This makeshift storage vessel stood as a ticking time bomb, with the neighborhood oblivious to the danger lurking silently in their midst. January 1919 broke with a cold snap. The molasses tank was filled despite warnings and reports indicating minor leaks and signs of structural stress. However, the urgency to meet industrial demands overshadowed caution. But nature was to play a cruel role in this tragic tale. A sudden warming period caused the thick molasses inside the tank to expand rapidly. The brittle steel, already strained, gave way without warning. On January 15, shortly after noon, the tank burst open. A deafening roar echoed across the neighborhood as a wave of molasses, reaching heights over 25 feet, surged forward at an estimated 35 miles per hour. Streets disappeared beneath the sticky flood, houses crumbled, and the lives of countless residents were changed forever. Eyewitnesses described a surreal scene, gated men rushing through knee-deep molasses, rescuers struggling to free trapped victims, horses slipping and struggling amid the syrupy tide, and the sticky substance adhering to everything it touched, turning streets into rivers of brown, viscous liquid. The flood claimed 21 lives, a death toll reflective of the sudden and overwhelming nature of the disaster. Injuries numbered over 150, and the community was thrown into chaos. The aftermath was harrowing. Rescue workers labored under difficult conditions, battling not only time but the sticky hazard itself. The molasses lingered in the streets for weeks, seeping into the fabric of the neighborhood and resisting all attempts at quick removal. The disaster prompted widespread outrage and scrutiny, eventually culminating in a historic legal battle against the United States Industrial Alcohol Corporation. The trial revealed a catalog of negligence, faulty construction ignored in favor of profit, inadequate inspection, and recklessness. The Great Molasses Flood became a seminal case in American industrial history. It reshaped regulations around construction, safety, and accountability, sending ripples far beyond the Boston waterfront. But beyond the legal and industrial implications, the flood compelled historians and engineers to reassess how seemingly trivial elements of daily life could become sources of immense risk. In many ways, it was a disaster born from a perfect storm of human error, corporate greed, and environmental conditions, a reminder that progress without prudence can have devastating consequences. As we continue this exploration in subsequent episodes, we will delve deeper into the lives it affected, the rescue efforts that followed, the court case that made history, and the lasting legacy of the Great Molasses Flood. As the wave of molasses surged through Boston's North End, the impact on the residents was immediate and devastating. Families were ripped from their homes, businesses destroyed, and the streets transformed into treacherous rivers of brown syrup. Imagine the confusion and terror as people struggled to flee, some caught in a thick, sticky substance, others trapped beneath debris or crushed by collapsing buildings. One of the hardest-hit areas was Commercial Street, a vibrant commercial artery lined with shops and homes. Witnesses described scenes of total chaos, a 5-story wave crashing down, sweeping away everything in its path. Among those caught in the flood was a young woman named Rose, who later recounted how she and her neighbors scrambled to escape. The molasses, moving faster than a man could run, left no time to react. Emergency responders arrived quickly, but the rescue operation was unlike any other. Firefighters waded through chest-deep molasses, hindered by its viscous nature that made every step an exhausting battle. Horses used in rescue efforts sometimes panicked, slipping on the molasses-coated streets. Medical teams struggled to reach the injured amid the thick syrup that clung to skin and clothing. Tragically, many lives were lost not just to the initial flood but also during rescue attempts. The overwhelming force of the molasses wave had broken buildings apart, and survivors were often trapped beneath wreckage or immobilized by the sticky substance. Some victims drowned in the molasses or succumbed to hypothermia in the freezing winter air. The disaster deeply affected the tight-knit immigrant community of the North End. Many of the residents were Italian and Irish immigrants who had come to Boston seeking new opportunities. The flood washed away not only property but the fragile sense of security the neighborhood held. Neighbors banded together, helping to dig out the trapped, search for loved ones, and provide shelter to the displaced. In the days following the flood, cleanup operations began but were fraught with difficulty. Molasses did not behave like water, it was thick, sticky, and clung to nearly every surface it touched. Streets were slippery and dangerous, and the smell of fermenting molasses lingered, complicating recovery. The process took weeks, with workers using salt water and sand to break down the syrup and mop up affected areas. The incident caught national attention, and public outrage mounted against the Purity Distilling Company and its parent corporation. Investigations revealed that the tank had leaked for months before the disaster, yet little was done to fix or replace it. Complaints by locals went unheeded, and the company's failure to ensure structural integrity was laid bare during the ensuing legal battles. Victims' families sought justice, filing lawsuits that culminated in a landmark trial. The legal proceedings laid bare corporate negligence and the dangers of unregulated industrial expansion. Expert witnesses in engineering testified that poor materials, improper design, and defective construction were the direct causes of the tank's failure. The trial set important precedents for accountability in industrial accidents, influencing safety regulations nationwide. Beyond the courtroom, the Great Molasses Flood raised awareness of urban safety concerns and industrial responsibility. It prompted cities to reevaluate how hazardous materials were stored and managed in densely populated areas, an issue still highly relevant in today's urban planning and industrial regulation. But amid the tragedy, stories of heroism and resilience emerged. Neighbors who braved the sticky floodwaters to save others, firefighters whose tireless efforts prevented even greater loss, and communities who came together in mourning and rebuilding. The Great Molasses Flood is a powerful reminder of the unpredictable consequences of human industrial activity and the need for vigilance, compassion, and ethical responsibility in the pursuit of progress. Great Molasses Flood did more than just devastate Boston's North End, it sent shockwaves through the legal, engineering, and political landscapes of America, shaping policy and public awareness for years to come. In the weeks and months after the disaster, victims, and their families sought justice. The resulting legal battle was one of the first major cases of its kind, setting a precedent for corporate accountability in industrial accidents. The United States Industrial Alcohol Corporation and its subsidiary, the Purity Distilling Company, faced a class action lawsuit filed by the flood victims. In court, expert engineers testified to the clear negligence involved in the tank's construction and maintenance. The tank had been filled before proper testing was complete, its walls were too thin to withstand the pressure, and old rivets had been reused to save costs. The company's attempts to minimize the damage and deflect responsibility only fueled public outrage. After a lengthy legal process, the court found the corporation liable for the deaths and destruction caused by the flood. This ruling not only awarded damages to the victims but also sent a clear message that corporate negligence would not be tolerated. Beyond financial compensation, the flood pushed for sweeping changes in engineering standards and urban safety regulations. It highlighted the dangers of storing hazardous materials in densely populated areas without adequate oversight, prompting many cities across the United States to adopt stricter building codes and inspection protocols. The disaster also amplified the conversation about industrial safety more broadly. It illustrated how rapid industrial expansion, when unchecked, could put communities at risk, and underscored the need for ethical responsibility and rigorous engineering practices. In Boston, the flood became a symbol of tragedy but also of resilience. Memorials were established, and the event has been commemorated in public memory through books, articles, and even museum exhibits. The Molasses tank site today is marked by a small plaque, a reminder of the sticky disaster that changed the city forever. Historians continue to study the Great Molasses Flood not just as a quirky anecdote but as a critical case that reflects the complexities of industrial America. It challenges us to think about how technological progress and human error can collide with catastrophic results. For engineers and urban planners, it remains a cautionary tale on the importance of safety, testing, and community impact assessment. For the public, it is a story that combines tragedy, resilience, and accountability in a uniquely unusual context. In closing, the Great Molasses Flood teaches us that history is not only written in the grand events of wars and empires but also in the unexpected disasters that shape our communities and our laws. It reminds us to respect the power of even the most unlikely forces and to never underestimate the human consequences of industrial progress. Thank you for joining this comprehensive exploration of the Great Molasses Flood. If you found this story enriching and hope to uncover more forgotten chapters of history, please subscribe to the Time Archive. Together, we will continue to unlock the past's greatest stories. Stay curious, and until next time, keep uncovering history's secrets.